Hello, fellow yappers. I'm Ruchi.
And I'm Shalini, and we're your hosts of Binge Yap Repeat.
We're two best friends who spend an embarrassing amount of time binge watching TV, and honestly, we just need to talk about it. If you're here, we're guessing you do too.
Fair warning, this is a spoiler-friendly zone. We will be discussing lots of spoilers. So, if you haven't watched the show yet, hit pause, go binge, and come back when you're ready to yap with us.
And now, it's yap time. Hello, yappers. Today we'll be yapping about Adolescence. Adolescence is a 4-episode miniseries that premiered on Netflix on March 13th, 2025. It centers on a 13-year-old schoolboy named Jamie Miller, who is played by Owen Cooper, who was arrested for the murder of a girl in his school. Each of its 4 episodes was shot in one continuous take. And the show was also co-created by Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham, who also plays the father, Eddie Miller. So this is definitely our highest rated show by far, with a 99% tomato meter and 74% popcorn meter. And in the UK alone, episode 1 had been watched by 2.7 million people after just 2 days. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's definitely like top of the charts. There's so much to talk about here. And the fact that it's highly rated, like, I just hope we do this show justice. But, oh my gosh, insane. Well, okay, so let's talk about the 4 episodes being one continuous take each. How long did it take you to realize that?
Okay, so I first realized, well, I guess I suspected it at the end of the first episode during the police interview with Jamie. I was like, oh, I think this whole interview has been one single take. And then, so I was kind of attuned to that. And then when I started episode 2, I was like, this first scene of episode 2 also seems to be one continuous take. And then I just kept waiting for the break and it never came. And so I think it was maybe like 10 minutes into episode 2 that I finally looked it up and saw.
That's earlier than
How about
me.
you?
I think so. I started watching episode 3, which episode 3 was it was in like one room for the most part. It was the conversation between Jamie and the
psychologist.
Yeah. Brianni, I think, is her name. So in that episode, I was like, oh, that's cool that it's like all in this one room. And then I wonder if they did one continuous take because it was all in this room. And then as I was watching episode 4, I was like, oh, this too is like one continuous take. And then I didn't like really think much of it. And then as I started doing research for this show, I was like, oh, they're all this way. Oops.
Nice. Okay, it's interesting though, because if I hadn't known, I think it added like this level of gamification for myself when I was watching it. I guess after I looked it up, in the middle of episode 2, where I was like, ooh, I wonder how they're gonna show this. Or like, I wonder, you know how episode 4 starts inside the father's tool shed? And then I'm like, oh, is the camera gonna like go out the door and follow him? Or like, how is it gonna do it? And then it just like went sideways through the window. And so it added this interesting level of, I don't know, engagement with the show, where I was just like constantly wondering where the camera is going to go. And it almost felt like the camera was an extra character in the show.
Oh, yeah. I can see what you mean. I think there are like a couple shots that you mentioned, like the through the window shot that was like super cool. Like when I looked back on it, I was like, wait, that's insane that it was one continuous take and they did all of this stuff. So like there was another through the window shot in episode 2 when they're going through the school, when Detective Bascom starts running after I can't remember
Ryan.
Yeah, he starts running after Ryan. There's like a through the window shot there. And then at the end of that episode, they take the camera and they actually attach it to a drone. And
Yes.
like, that's how they get that overhead shot of like where Katie was killed.
That was so crazy. So because I looked it up in the middle of that episode, I saw all these things saying like at the end of episode 2, there's a really beautiful drone shot. And so I was like,
Yeah.
how are they gonna do this? And then I didn't even realize it was already in the air, and I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is the drone shot.
Yeah, so smooth. It was crazy. I think that episode is probably my favorite just because there was so many different moving parts. And also I felt like we got a kind of inside look into like this is a potential factor of
Mm.
the why behind the why done it.
Yeah. I I think my favorite episode was episode 3. Just because I thought it gave us the most insight into his personality. And yeah, it was so tense and obviously all in one take, all in one room, but I was hooked. I was like, I
Yeah.
was sat, and it was so tense. And yeah, I think that one was my favorite. There was one more interesting thing about this one take thing. The creator of the show wanted this show to be a single take show where each episode was one take. And they decided on that before they decided on what the story was going to be. So it was more like this was the plan for a show. And then they were like, what story could do this type of directing and this type of cinematography justice? And that's how, I mean, not came up with the story because I know it's based in reality, but that they like kind of fit the story to that, which I thought was really interesting.
That is super interesting. Like that's like if we were like, I don't know what it's gonna be about, but all I want to do is a podcast.
Right.
Like, okay.
I know. And I think the director that they chose for it has done a lot of single take shows and movies in his past. So they were like, okay, we know what we want to do. We got the guy. Like, now we got to find a story for it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So I think that was probably Jack Thorne that you were talking about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Because I saw some article where Stephen Graham was being interviewed, and they were like, "Oh, like how did you come up with this story?" And then he was like, "Oh, I was reading this article, and like there was this article about a young boy who like stabbed this girl, and then I read another article that was like that, and then another, and then another, and then there was like so much knife violence going on, and it's specifically knife violence against girls too,
Mm.
which is really heartbreaking.
And was it mostly children?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
young kids. And so I think that's why he kind of started going into like, why is this happening? And
Mm.
started researching more about the manosphere and incel culture on like Reddit and Twitter and all of these things. And he even said in an interview that he wishes that he could unread the stuff that he read.
Mm.
That's really
Jeez,
scary.
that is so bleak.
Yeah. But one thing that he did mention was the reason why they kept saying like, "Oh, this isn't a who done it; it's a why done it," and that's why at the end of episode 1, it was really important for the audience to know that without a doubt, Jamie is the one who did it, and it's just a
Yes.
matter of the why, and like that's what you start uncovering in all these later episodes.
Yeah, I'm so glad they did that because I think it was really interesting as the viewer knowing that okay, this definitely happened, but then seeing Jamie continue to say I didn't do it, like why am I here? It was just such an interesting, I don't know, it was very unsettling. It's like you do know why you're here, but you're being
Yeah.
so insistent and like obviously we know and you know.
Well, I guess like in spite of that, I mean, maybe I was like someone who was taken for a ride basically because even though I saw the video with my own eyes, the fact that he was like, "I didn't do it, Dad. Like you have to believe me, I didn't do it." And then when they went to the school scene, I was like, maybe Ryan did it because he looks like similar height, similar hair, and he's like also freaked out about it. So maybe he was the one who did it. So I was kind of questioning that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also thought that like when Jade, who is Katie's friend, Katie's best friend, when she starts attacking Ryan and she's like, "You murdered my best friend." I was like, "Oh, is interesting. Is that where this show is going? Like it's gonna come out that it wasn't Jamie after all?" So it's interesting that we both thought that. I bet that was on purpose to cast someone as Ryan that looks like Jamie enough, and the fact that they only show the police questioning Ryan and not
Yeah.
Tommy, who's their black friend,
Hmm.
I think was really interesting too. They're like, yeah, we talked to Tommy already. We're going to talk to you right now.
Yeah. And then the other thing, the other person who also didn't believe it was him was that random person in Wainwright's at the end of episode 4 or like
Oh
middle of
my
episode
God,
4.
at the hardware store.
Yeah. He was
That was
like,
crazy.
"Hey," like sharing that conspiracy theory about how it's most likely not him because of the way that like the piercing wounds or something, which is like so insane to tell the father who actually saw the video and who knows it was Jamie. That's so insane to even have that conversation.
I had a feeling something like that was going to happen at the store. It was just the tension was building up too much, and I was like, oh no, someone's going to recognize him. And I did not expect it to be like that. But when I saw the kid and I like saw how he was interacting with the dad, I was like, oh my God, this is happening. Yeah, he's so defensive of Jamie in such an odd way.
What did you think about the dad in general? So I was actually talking about this show with our friend Sarah, and Sarah was saying that she also like went on this like rat hole and like did so much research about the show afterwards. And a lot of people on Reddit were really coming for the dad. They like really blamed the dad for what Jamie did. And I was like, this is so interesting because when I was watching the show, I definitely did not think that. I was like, I thought the whole point of this show was that this could happen to like any family.
Yeah, that is also the message I got, but they did like kind of raise some questions about it. Like they were asking in episode 3, Bryony is asking Jamie like, what is your dad like? How does he treat your mom? Like what do you think of masculinity? And I felt like it was kind of hinting that maybe there's something underneath the surface with this family that they haven't shown us explicitly. And the casting, I mean, I know he's also the show's creator, Stephen Graham. He's like this buff tattooed man also that's like this looking at this man like he could fuck anyone if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting too. Like they didn't cast like this gentle looking timid man for this role. They cast like this absolute muscle man.
Hey, an absolute muscle man who still tucked in the teddy bear at the end of episode 4.
True. But yeah, I guess going back to my thoughts on it, I watching it, I really did not think that the dad was to blame at all. Like I don't think there was any evidence that he mistreated the mom or his daughter or anything. And I thought all of his emotional reactions to things were very natural and not concerning.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think, okay, I guess like going through the episodes, like episode 1 is his arrest, episode 2 is understanding the school, episode 3 is understanding Jamie, and then episode 4 is understanding the family in the aftermath of Jamie's arrest. What I got from it was that of all of the different episodes, there were certain reasons why Jamie could do this thing, and each episode kind of dug a little deeper on those different reasons, right? So the school was part of the cause, the bullying was part of the cause, the social media was part of the cause, the family, the dad,
Mhm.
the mom, maybe even the sister, Jamie himself, how he is impressionable. I thought all of those were reasons. And so that's why I thought the dad was just like part of the picture. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't completely blameless, but neither was anything else.
Right. It's like anyone can raise a child how he did and like they probably wouldn't become a murderer at the age of 13. Like I don't think there was
Yeah.
anything inherently wrong with how he parented, but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it just went into this bigger picture and the like however the dad was raising the son didn't like counteract what he was receiving from external factors.
Right, right. Yeah, and like they even said that at the end of episode 4, which I really loved, is that like the parents are having this heart to heart and they're like, how could we have made someone like Jamie? How could we
Hmm.
have made like a child murderer like this? And then Lisa comes in and basically is like mending their relationship and like carrying the whole family on her back. And then the parents are like, oh, but we also made Lisa. So we're not entirely to blame. So yeah, I don't know. Sarah brought up this point that we as women probably have a different relationship with our dad than a son would have with his dad,
Hmm.
which I
Hmm.
think is a good point.
Yeah, okay. On that note, there were a few things I clocked in Jamie's interactions with his dad that I was like, are they like trying to send a message with this? So the fact that he chooses his dad as his appropriate adult And then later in the one of the last scenes of the show when he's on the phone with his dad, and then his dad's like, "Oh, your mother and Lisa are also here." And he's like, "I thought I was only on the phone with you." And I was
Hmm.
like, I wonder. I thought that was interesting that they included that little bit. And I was like, "Oh, is he trying to say like, I thought I didn't know the women were here? Or was it just like, I just like want to talk to my dad and I
The
didn't."
big dogs are talking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that was the case. Like maybe it was part of it, like knowing Jamie and like what we know about the family, maybe that was part of it. I also feel like, if I feel like I'm just talking to my mom and then like my if my dad and sister were also there, it like suddenly becomes like less intimate, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
true. I think
yeah, I think that's
that's
also
very
like probably,
normal. Yeah.
yeah. And the fact that he was talking about his plea deal, which is like a very intimate thing, and
hmm
the fact that he knows that his dad is the one who saw the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
episode was the only time that we find out that his dad was the only one who saw it. Like no
Yeah.
one in the video.
Even the man at the hardware store, like, you haven't seen the video, sir?
Yeah,
How come you
seriously.
got opinions?
I thought that was an interesting choice. But is that like the normal proceedings for cases like this?
I do think they for child well, I guess I'm speaking from an American perspective. I don't know about in the UK, but I know in the US they really try to protect the perpetrator and the victim if they're children. And they do a lot to like protect any evidence or anything leaking to the media about it. So
Okay.
it's probably
That makes
similar.
Yeah, that does make sense because I actually was looking up the different articles that Stephen Graham was referencing when he was like, "Oh, I wrote this show because of like XYZ articles." Looked up those articles, and a lot of them they only had information about the victim. They had no information about the perpetrators because they were generally like kids underage.
Interesting.
Yeah. But speaking about the victim, I guess like this is a fun fact. But I don't know if you heard at the end of, I think it was episode 2, while the drone was flying over the site. There's the background track has like a lone soprano singing.
Hmm.
So that voice is actually the actress who plays Katie.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. It was like, oh, even though we like never really see her interact or anything, like her presence is still there, and it is the driving force behind this story.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. That song and the song at the end of episode 4 like really stuck with me. They both were stuck in my head for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so beautiful, so
So
heavy, but
beautiful.
so beautiful.
hmm
I guess like okay, this is something that I thought was kind of funny. Just seeing the disconnect between the generations, like in this
Oh,
school episode.
the emojis when dad was like, "What?"
Yeah, I thought it was so funny how so Detective Bascom takes his kid aside into a room and his child is like, "Oh, like you're embarrassing me, like you need to stop blundering around. Like this is actually what these emojis mean. You see that dynamite exploding? It's not a dynamite, it's actually a red pill. And like this is what this emoji actually means." And the dad's like, that's like two symbols. Like, how did you get
How do
that
you know?
entire story? And then when the kid was like, "Oh, it's like red pill," the dad is like the Matrix. And then the kid was like, "What the heck is the Matrix?"
Yeah, he's like, "You watching The Matrix?" And he's like, "What, dad?"
Like this, I don't even know what you're talking about. I thought that was so funny because like they're both right.
Yeah.
There's such a large disconnect
It was
between the two of them.
so funny. The kid wasn't like, I think his name was Adam. Adam wasn't like, "Dad, this is how you do your job better." It was like, "Dad, you're embarrassing me at this school."
Yeah. Wait, and then also speaking of the kid, I don't know if you clocked this, but remember at the end of episode 1, the whole show starts with Detective Bascom getting a call from his son being like, "Oh, I don't want to go to school today."
hmm
And then you see that at the school, like it is possible that he's getting bullied because when
Yeah.
his dad shows up, like the kids all start winking and stuff.
Yeah, that was really sad. I felt so bad for Adam. And
Yeah.
like I mean, yeah, it doesn't I mean, no kid deserves to be bullied, but I didn't get why he was being bullied at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like how the dad kind of had a wake up call though after they had like their whole discussion. Like Detective Buxton like kind of realized that his son probably was getting bullied or like maybe if he wasn't 100% sure, he was like, I need to like, spend more time with my son because there's a
Mm,
whole world that my son is being exposed to that I just have no idea about. And then he like goes and asks his son if he wants to like go to the chip stand around the corner or something. I thought that was really
yeah, that
sweet.
was really sweet. I loved that sweet, tender moment that they had at the end when they're like joking about getting chips from the Chinese place.
Yeah. And then he's like,
Very
you
sweet.
have to get chips from the Chinese. They have flavor. I was
Yeah,
like,
like, come on, Dad. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, he's opening up a little bit. That was cute.
Yeah. That was so cute. Um, the other thing that I was just thinking about, um, Detective Buscum is like having a conversation in episode 2 with his fellow detective. I think her name is Misha. And then
Detective
Misha,
Frank, I think.
oh yeah, Misha Frank, I think. Yeah, yeah, Detective Frank. So then they're chatting, and then Detective Frank is like, all kids really need is that one thing that they're good at that makes them feel good about themselves.
Mm,
And then you realize that Jamie's one thing that he's good at is drawing.
mm.
And then in episode 4, like 13 months after his arrest, you see like, Jamie actually like, drew his dad as part of the card. And then now that he's like drawing again and feels better about himself, that's also why he's like, I think we should be honest and like I want to change my plea to, yeah, to guilty.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I hadn't really put those two moments together, but that's so true. I mean, I know there were only 4 episodes, but that the drawing and the decision to change his plea it happened both in the same episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Also about Detective Frank. So in episode 2, when Mrs. Fenimore, who's the lower school teacher, but she's like showing around the detectives in the school, when she brings them into a classroom, she's like, "Oh, this is Detective Bascom. He's got something he wants to talk to you about." And then Detective Bascom starts talking, and then she like interrupts him. She's like, "Sorry, also this is Detective Frank." And then Detective Frank's like, "It's fine. Like, it's fine. Let's just move on." Like that. I thought it was very realistic, but I would love to hear your thoughts on why they included that dialogue in that.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think there's obviously this theme of like toxic masculinity and misogyny just throughout the entire show. So I think that's like a form of microaggression, right? Where they're like, yeah, these are the things that can kind of add up and are like super prevalent in our society because taken by itself, it truly isn't a big deal. But when it happens again and again and again, it's like death by a thousand paper cuts.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And like not even just the men are perpetuating it. It's
Yeah,
also the women in the society. And what I took away from it is that like children are such sponges that like everything that happens in front of them, they like take in and internalize and it forms their impression of the world.
yeah,
I actually recently saw this Instagram post where this mother of a 5-year-old is like, up until this year, my son's favorite color was rainbow, and like his favorite Mario character was Daisy. And now he's come home from kindergarten and he's like, Daisy's only for girls and he only wants blue things. I know. And it made me
no.
so sad. I was like, just not even 1 year in school.
Yeah,
And like, they just who's doing it? It's everyone, but like, how is this happening so quickly?
it's everyone. Oh my gosh, that's so
I
sad. Yeah,
know.
school has such a like big influence on kids. Actually, so my boyfriend's nephew is like 2.5 or so, and he only recently started going to this Montessori school where they actually combine like a bunch of different ages together. So I think like 2 through 5-year-olds are allowed to be in this school. And as a result of being in that school, just like 6 months later, he's so independent.
What?
That's an example of where it can go in like the other direction, right? Is like he wants to like go to the bathroom by himself. He like helps his mom cook in the kitchen. It's like awesome, all of the things that he can do by
Interesting.
himself. So it's like, yeah, like school has such a crazy impact on kids, which is like obvious now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
don't expect it, especially at such a young age for school to have such, it's like you've spent 4 years raising your child with your own beliefs
yeah.
but those 4 years can be counteracted so quickly in like a week at school.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true. And like that's also why I was like, okay, that lends itself well to the point of, okay, this is just another factor in like what led up to Jamie doing this thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of school, actually, one thing that I saw on Reddit is when Jamie is asked about his favorite class, he says that it's history. But then when you actually go to this school, like when the detectives go to this school, like that school is chaotic AF, right?
That school
And
was
so like
crazy.
especially in history where they're just like showing films every single day.
Hmm.
And so one redditor's theory was like, oh, I wonder if history is his favorite class because that's the class where he can actually do what he wants to do and like just like do art or something or draw or something.
Oh, interesting. I mean, he clearly knew Detective Bascom was like, who's your favorite person from history? And he like had a very good answer. So like clearly he's paying attention.
True. Okay, yeah. Okay, maybe then that is like the point where he's more into history, actual
Yeah.
history.
But yeah,
Okay.
the history teacher was like the Mr. Malik. Like that man,
Crazy.
mentally, he's somewhere else.
He has a side podcast or something. Like he is checked out. Everyone at that school is checked out.
Yeah, that that school was so crazy. I was like, does it feel crazy? A, because we're walking through all of it at once.
Mm.
B, because the murder of a student just happened. Or C, is it always like this? Like it felt there were teachers yelling at students left and right.
Yeah,
Students were like running around. It was so chaotic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me when they were walking through the school, one of the girls was like, is it terrorism? Like, is it a fire? Like, what's going on? And it just feels like, I think it's a combination of all the things that you mentioned. It just feels like everyone is on edge all the time. Honestly, I feel like I would be too. We hear so much in the news about all of the
Mhm.
violence that goes on at school. Like, I can't imagine what it's like being an American public school student at this time. It must feel really scary.
Totally. Totally.
Okay, well, going back to the whole point of like toxic masculinity, I thought episode 3 was really interesting because Brioni was basically getting misogyny at like every single angle. Like getting it from Jamie for sure, but also getting it from these random security guards. Like,
Yeah.
hop off, dude.
Yeah.
And she had a much more civil response than I think I would have had.
Okay, so yeah, that guy when he was like, "Oh, maybe we should just switch jobs," and she was like, "What? Like we have
Yeah,
extremely different qualifications. Like what?"
yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say, like, she had a very nice response to him. She was very like, "Oh, I couldn't possibly do what you did."
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, "Ah, let's switch." And she was like, "No, I
No.
like my job." Yeah.
So odd. But yeah, her conversation with Jamie, where do I even start? Like, okay, one thing I thought was interesting. So when she enters the room, you get a sense that like she's kind of become friends with Jamie,
Yeah.
and like she's like, oh, like I want to give him hot chocolate with marshmallows in it. He likes that. She like brings him a sandwich and they're like, he clearly feels very comfortable around her and they're joking around. And by the end of the episode, she like can't even look at that sandwich. Like she's so disgusted and yeah, and so I'm curious how the previous, I guess, 4 sessions with Jamie went if this one had such a huge effect on her and like what they talked about.
Yeah, I'm also curious. Well, like the other thing that our friend Sarah mentioned, and sorry, I'm saying Sarah so many times because she explicitly told me to name drop her. So
Nice.
that's why I'm saying Sarah. So one thing Sarah mentioned is that in her deep dive around this, she found out that like the sandwich was intentionally there as a negative, like the opposite of a reward. It bringing in a sandwich
Punishment?
that he kind of, but like she brought in the hot chocolate as like a reward for him, right? To like positively incentivize him. But then she also brought in the sandwich as like a negative incentive, like to see how he would operate when given something that he doesn't necessarily like.
But do we know that he doesn't like it?
Yeah, I think so. Because didn't he mention at the beginning, it's pickle? I don't like pickle. Because he was like really excited about like tomato, right? And then she was like, oh, no tomato this time, like pickle instead.
Oh yeah, interesting. So like just to see if he has a negative emotional reaction to like not getting his way or something. Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
Yeah. And then she also, this is like a really side note, but she also mentioned that when they say pickle, apparently it refers to like Indian pickle, like lonza or like atar. Yeah. It's
Interesting.
not like a pickle.
Not an American dill pickle.
No,
Oh,
it's
that's
a
fun.
butter pickle. Yeah, so I thought it was interesting.
Hmm.
Oh, and also the hot chocolate that they used was not actually hot chocolate because when Jamie like slaps it to the side, apparently it would make the floor really sticky, which made camera handoff really difficult. Yeah, so they like stopped using hot chocolate.
What do they use?
I think they just used like water or something that was
Like
like easy.
brown water?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
Okay, so also in that episode, you see kind of the range of Jamie's emotions. He starts off very like playful and light-hearted. And then at some points in the episode, he like has a huge blowout and gets mad at her and like gets very intimidating and threatening and like stands over her and points his finger and like it looks like he's gonna attack her. I thought it was really well done and like the natural progression of the conversation was so interesting to me and like how she kind of pulls out these emotions, how she's always focusing on how he feels, but then like he's always reacting to her reaction to how he feels was
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, and the fact that he like wants to intimidate her and is like shouting at her and everything, but at the end of the episode he's like, "Do you like me?" Like he
Yeah.
really wants her validation and her approval. So interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has like a certain viewpoint towards women for sure. That much is clear. But at the end of the day, he still like wants to be liked by women.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, that also reminds me, I don't remember exactly what she asks him, but he says that he doesn't think he's attractive and like he doesn't think that he like has anything going for him basically, which reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about what Detective Frank said about how like every kid needs something and
Mhm.
like it just seems like he in that conversation with Bryony, he doesn't feel like he has anything. And like that's the
Mhm.
source of a lot of his discontentment, I guess.
Oh, I thought you were going to go in a different direction because I felt like he was saying that in a very leading way to be like I'm so ugly, eyes emoji, basically like wanting her to be like, oh no, you're not ugly, like
Yeah.
you're cute.
Also true. Also true. Like he was like, why didn't you tell me I'm not ugly? That's what you're supposed to tell me. And she's like, I'm more interested in what you think about yourself. But yeah, so okay, so I guess TBD or unknown whether he actually believes that or he was just fishing for a compliment.
Yeah, actually, I had a bullet point on this around like empty platitudes in general. So like he was definitely expecting to get like what a person should say in like a social situation. And I noticed that a lot of the teachers were doing that too in episode 2. So like there's that whole conversation between Jade and the teacher, which
Mm-hmm.
I thought was really interesting that I kind of wish that they had explored that a little bit more because I felt like that was another like iceberg of information that you could write an entire show just based on that interaction.
Totally. When Jade was like, stop saying that, you're just saying that, you don't actually mean it.
Yeah. And then she also talked about like her mom and the relationship, like she was really
Yeah.
scared about her mom getting involved with this whole story more so than like going to see a therapist or like going to see other things.
What was that with her mom? So she was what was she worried about? She just like didn't feel I interpreted that as like she didn't feel safe talking to her mom about this for some reason, but was that also your take? Like maybe she doesn't have the best relationship with her mom, so she doesn't feel that her home is a safe place, and normally her safe place would be Katie's house.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think the other part was just like, not that she didn't feel safe, but just like there was like a certain box. And I feel like a lot of parents have this, right? There's like a certain box that you want your kid to fit into. And
Mhm.
at a certain point, your kid outgrows that box. But I think a lot of parents think that kids do that a lot later than when it actually happens. Feel like this is a moment where Jade has outgrown the box, but she still wants to be able to fit in the box when her mom sees her, right? I don't know if that analogy makes
Oh, I love that analogy. I feel like that's so true. And parents just don't even realize it and kids don't know to tell their parents that, but then like the whole family's just like perpetuating this thing of like when we're together we must fit in this box. And it's like, no, maybe mom would be open to like growing the box if you told her that you've outgrown the box.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's definitely like aspects outside the box that are unsafe that like you don't want to be in. And then there are other aspects of the box that's just like I'm growing as a person. And I felt like when you're a teenager, you don't really know what parts are safe and what parts are unsafe. And you don't know how to have that conversation with your parents either.
Yeah. All the scenes with Jade were so heart-wrenching, and like
Mm,
she has so much anger and sadness in her about what happened. And like the one person that would help her through this is no longer there. And my
yeah.
heart just broke for her that like her one safe space in this world has been taken away from her. Also with that scene, so what we were talking about earlier where Jamie was like looking for empty platitudes, Jade wanted the opposite, where she felt like the teacher was giving her empty platitudes, and she was like, don't say that, you're just saying that everyone's the same, all adults are the same.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting that, like, just is it a personality thing? Is it a gender thing where, the men just want to hear, like, need to hear what they want to hear, and, like, the women just want the truth? I mean, obviously, that's a huge generalization and not true at all, but is that what they were trying to show? Of, like, yeah, was that comparison intentional?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it that way, that the two interactions would be like foils to each other. That's so interesting. I mean, I have to admit, when Jamie did say, "Oh, I'm so ugly," I felt the urge, or I expected that Brioni would be like, "Oh, no, you're not." I expected that to happen, and she just like didn't at all. And
Yeah,
I felt that withholding. I was
me
like, "Oh my
too.
gosh, what is this like societal response that's so ingrained in me? Like, what is happening here?"
Yes. Yeah, it reminded me in a weird way of the Mean Girls scene where Regina's like, "Oh my God, you're so pretty." And Katie's like, "Thanks." And Regina says, "Oh, so you agree?
Yeah,
You agree that you're pretty?" It
yeah,
felt exactly like that, where he was like, "Wait, so you agree that I'm ugly if you're not saying I'm not?"
yeah. It's such a funny analogy. Yeah, that's exactly it. And like, I also remember having like the opposite response as a kid, being like, does this mean I can't say thank you to any compliment ever?
Yes. I mean, no, it does not mean that, but agreed.
Oh.
Yes.
So this is like a complete pivot. But one thing I wanted to talk about was just like the general way that they filmed all of these things. So I don't know if you saw this, but the whole plan was to film each episode in full 10 times. So like one in the morning, one in the afternoon. But they found that a lot of attempts had to be abandoned and they had to restart things and like something would happen or they would improv or something. Anyway, ended up being episode one, they took take two. That's the shot that we saw. Episode two, they took take 13, which was
Wow.
on day five of the 5 day shoot. And then episode three, they took take 11. And then episode four, they took take 16.
Holy
So
shit.
many takes per episode. And
Oh my
it was
God.
all one shot. So
Right. So like take 13, that's 13 hours in to filming.
yeah, well, more or less, because like if like the previous takes were abandoned for some reason or another, then
Oh,
yeah.
true, true, true.
But yeah, in general, yes, it took a very long time. Actually, related to that, there is that one scene in episode two, no, sorry, episode three, where Jamie and Brienne are talking, and Jamie like yawns a little bit. So that apparently was unscripted. Like that was just the actor being
Being
tired.
tired.
And then Brienne just like took it and ran with it. Was like, "Am I boring you?" And then he was like, "No."
He's like, wait,
Yeah. Oh, also, it's his first time acting ever. He's
really?
not had, yeah, he's not had any like professional acting role before.
Oh my God. What an incredible young actor.
Yeah,
My
he's probably
goodness.
gonna get like an Emmy from this too.
Yeah, crazy. I saw that he's also been cast in Wuthering Heights coming up. Yeah.
I didn't know
So
that.
people don't know him
Cool.
from this. They will know him from that. What an incredible actor. He acted as well as like a very, very seasoned actor, I thought. Like all of his emotions were so chilling, and the way he was switching between emotions in episode 3 with Bryony, where he was just being kind of stoic and honest, and then he would switch and be like, look at you. You expect me to say something so interesting right now. And then it builds into anger. Oh my goodness. I can't believe this is his first thing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think it's not only his first thing, but like the range of emotions that you have to have, but also continuously throughout the entire like season.
Yeah.
Like you can't reset or like do anything. You have to just like keep going. So
Incredible.
I get why he yawned.
Oh, man, I'd be yawning the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did this make you feel by the end? The show.
Okay, the show ends with the family kind of having this tender moment of realizing, like, our family is our family. Even if we move, it's only going to solve what issues we're facing in the short term. Lisa's like, Jamie is ours, and like we have to own that basically. Oh my gosh, it was so depressing. Like I went on a run right afterwards, and I was like, man, if I hadn't gone on this run, I would have been depressed for the rest of the day because it was just such a bleak ending, I thought. And the last shot we see is the dad, or one of the last shots is the dad just crying in Jamie's bed and then tucking in the teddy bear and leaving. And it just broke my heart. But I guess that was my very first reaction to the end of the show. Overall, I think it sparks an interesting conversation about kind of incel culture and the male loneliness epidemic and
Mhm.
everything. And it actually reminded me a lot of that Instagram post that you sent our friends at one time about, I think it was like my pet boyfriend or something, about like how if it weren't for women, like men would not seek out friendship in the same way, and like the male friendships are so different and they don't emphasize intimacy and actual bonding. So it kind of reminded me of that. I had a lot of thoughts about that. And yeah, I don't know. I just want a solution. I don't
Yeah.
want this to keep happening, and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Well, also like that, the male loneliness epidemic, coupled with the fact that I think now like young men more than ever are like way more conservative, and young women more so than ever are way more liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Politics is becoming such a huge factor in like choosing a partner that what is going to happen?
I know.
It's insane. And I think like in general, the show made me feel really scared of having kids.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I know it
Because
did cross my mind, like, what would I do if I was in the parents' shoes?
yeah, there is no way like I don't even know today that like a dynamite exploding is like a red pill emoji. Like I don't know that. And
Right.
like I found myself to be hip and with the youths. But like if that's what I already don't know, being like, in my 30s, I wonder how much more I will continue to not know.
I
Like as
know.
and then also trying to raise a kid in that environment just seems like so scary. Like how do you even protect your child from these things? From like social how will social media evolve?
And like a 13-year-old boy falling into incel culture. Like, incel stands for involuntary celibacy. Why is a 13-year-old boy in this culture to begin with?
Yeah.
It's so sad that children of such a young age feeling victimized by society in this way when like they have so much life ahead of them. And yeah, it's my only solution that I can think of is not giving my child a smartphone until they're like
Yeah.
18.
I think even the co-creator was like, if it were up to me, social media ban for kids, just
Hmm.
across the board. Like they should not be into this.
Yeah.
Which I think before I saw this show, I'd have been like, it's fine.
Right.
But now I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's scary. And like their
Super
brains
scary.
aren't fully formed yet. And I think I don't remember what this was from, but there was a discussion, maybe it was during 13 Reasons Why, just about how children and teenagers, until you're 25 and your brain hasn't fully developed, temporary emotions feel so permanent and temporary situations feel like such a defining part of your life. And it's so sad that kids take that short-term emotion. They don't see their parents as a support system to help them through that situation. And so they're like, this is just how life is, so I must do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I think kids definitely feel like it's us versus them when it comes to parents. I think that's the other thing that I'm super worried about with having kids. It's like, how am I gonna convince my child that I'm not their enemy and like I just want what's best for them? And what
Yeah.
is best for them is, yeah, it's gonna be eating broccoli sometimes, you know. Like, you can't have
Right.
ice cream all the time. But like that kind of discussion times 10, like as things progress in their life, it just feels really scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But I guess to put a positive spin on it, like we said before, many factors, many
Yeah.
factors. If you can make a Jamie, you can make a Lisa.
Yeah. If you can make a Lisa, you can make a Jamie.
Oh God.
Just kidding.
Oh yeah. Okay, so one thing we didn't talk about is in episode 4, the word nonce was graffitied on
Mm,
the van. I don't know if you like researched what that actually was.
I didn't, but I hope you did and you can educate me about it.
I did.
Amazing.
So the word nonce is apparently a British slang term that means pedophile, but it's spelled with a C. So it was actually misspelled on the van, which is probably related to the fact that like a teenager who had never seen it written down or some kid was the one who graffitied it. But yeah, it means pedophile, and it's the implication is that these kids like blame Eddie, or like they think that Eddie abused Jamie, and like that's why Jamie did this horrible thing.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely explains Eddie's his anger a lot more. Because I don't know what I thought, but I thought it was just at Jamie, not at Eddie, or like this family is tarnished kind of vibe, but not Eddie specifically. So that's very interesting. I did know that it was misspelled because I was watching with subtitles and then like it was obviously written with an S. Actually, I thought it was a G at first. I was like, what's non? Did you
That's
say?
a G too. I was like, Nonge?
And then they keep saying nons, but then on in the subtitles it was with a C. So then I was like, oh, interesting.
What I saw on Reddit is that people generally kind of just like throw it around.
Hmm.
I don't think it like legitimately means like pedophile, but it just means it's like an insult. It's like an insult
Okay.
person. Yeah. But I mean, listeners, correct me if I'm wrong. But that was kind of the results of my research. Yeah. Okay. I have other things to talk about. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was actually one of the reasons that we decided to watch this show. There's some controversy where the show was kind of accused of race swapping because a
Hmm.
lot of people said that the crime that it was based off of was actually like a black boy who had murdered these 3 black girls. And then there was like a response to this where the creator Thorne had said that like one, it wasn't. It was based on like a series of violent crimes that were happening across the UK. And I think it was just like the release of the show coincided with like that crime happening. So
Hmm.
like production was already underway when all of this stuff was happening when that crime actually happened. So like the timing itself like doesn't align.
Hmm.
But in general, Thorne was like, it's not about like black boys or white boys or like
Yeah.
any specific race. It's really just it's not to say like this kind of violence can only be committed by black boys, because that's not what we're trying to say. It's just that like kids in general are committing these crimes because they're being like indoctrinated by what they see on social media, and like they don't have the proper support in school or from their parents or from like hobbies or whatever. And so like these crimes are like happening now frighteningly more so than ever, and so we wanted to tell a story that would shed light on this kind of violence.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I thought that was, I mean, I thought I kind of agreed with him. I think from his perspective, I see it. I can also see, I think there's like a societal meta point here that's like, if it's a black boy, it becomes a black story, or it becomes
Hmm.
a race thing, versus if it's a white boy, it's not a race thing.
It sounds like there are a lot of parallels between this story and a real story that happened with a Black boy, so I can see why someone might have an issue with that. At what point is it okay or not okay for a person that looks different from what it was intended for to like play a character? I do see the bigger societal point, like unfortunately, just the way things are, like I think people would have gotten a different message if it was a Black boy that was cast. And so I understand their decision to make it a white boy. One thing I did find interesting though is that they cast a Black detective for it, and their choice, because we had kind of briefly talked about the origin and how they like decided to cast a white boy, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, huh, well, they decided to cast a Black detective. And you know, like the teacher was Indian, another teacher was also.
Well, I think in those roles, like, I don't think that those roles would have been treated any differently if they were a different race. But I think like the race that kind of did matter was Jamie's, right? And so I think like
Yeah,
that's why it was
and
such a big
Katie's
deal.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe Katie's, yeah. And so like I think that was like why it was such a big deal. In some cases, I think in general, like when it comes to race swapping in general, I think that if if the character's story is like fully anchored on like their background, and that background only makes sense given a certain race or a certain ethnicity or a certain like country of origin, like then it's not, then you can't race swap, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do think that like for this particular instance, I agree with you. I think it would have been a different story. I think people would have gotten a different message if it were like a Black boy or a Black girl like doing the crime or like being a victim of the crime.
I think it's more true to the stories that this is based on, that they kept, I guess, both Jamie and Katie as the same race, because I think it would have introduced a whole other conversation of like racially motivated hate crimes if it was like a white boy murdering a Black girl or a Black boy murdering a white girl. Like there just would have been like a more complicated conversation, I think. But the fact that they kept both kids the same race, I think just kept it really motivated on their intended message, which was this incel culture.
Yeah, for sure. And I think their other intended message of this can happen to anyone.
Mhm.
Should we do ratings?
Yeah, let's do it. Um, I would give the show, I think, a 9 out of 10. It was just as a piece of art, it was so beautiful. They put so much effort into it. The acting was phenomenal. Story was really well laid out. And on top of it, just like such a heart-wrenching topic and story and so many complicated emotions. Yeah, I loved it. 9 out of 10.
I I would say I agree. I would say like 8.5 or 9. And the only reason that it would be 8.5 is because um it is very heavy. And so I don't know if I would want to rewatch it. But I do think that it gave me a lot of food for thought. And like really made me evaluate like if I want kids and everything. I took a really good hard look at like what I want and everything. So that not many shows can do that. And of course, like all the cinematography and just like the art itself was phenomenal.
Nice.
Well, hug your kids, call your parents, tell someone you love them.
Thanks for yapping with us. If you loved this episode, have some hot takes we missed, or if you've got a show you're dying for us to binge next, find us on socials. We're at Binge Yap Repeat.
Until next time, happy binging!